A wild sequence of events leading to a large police presence here after a crash, a three-car crash on the 134 freeway. Now, right after that crash happened, one of the drivers fled the scene shirtless, wearing only his underwear and carrying a guitar into this residential neighborhood where CHP engaged in a foot pursuit with that suspect. There was a search going on in this neighborhood that you're looking at right here. During that search for that suspect, gunfire was exchanged with a separate suspect in this neighborhood.
We caught up with one of the suspects getting arrested after he took all of his clothes off, was only in his underwear, and swimming in a neighbor's pool for one reason or another, maybe just trying to blend in. But when those three suspects got into that home, this home right here, that woman on the left side of the screen came out with a gun. She started shooting. The LAPD officers who were in the area thought they were shooting at them, then they shot her. It's a whole big mess. She has a gunshot wound to the shoulder right now that she's being treated for. Two of the three suspects are in custody. We're still waiting to figure out what happened to the third suspect. All of this as we look back live now at the scene where LAPD is still investigating this. So they've rolled K9 out.
Fired at the armed woman, injuring her in the shoulder. She, along with her child's babysitter, can be seen complying with officers' orders to surrender with their hands up. Officers investigated the situation and concluded she was the homeowner and not a suspect. She was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries and her babysitter released.
The U.S. Attorney for Southern California, Bill Assaley, announced his office is launching a federal investigation into how state and local leaders spent billions of dollars on the homeless crisis.
I believe there was one audit that said there was like $2 billion worth of missing money out there.
At this point, is there any evidence of criminal activity or fraud connected to homelessness funding?
All we can say is we're going to go where the evidence takes us.
Assaley, until last week, was a Republican state assemblyman representing the Inland Empire. As is routine when new presidents take office, Assaley was handpicked by the Trump administration. Critics say what makes Assaley's selection different from past administrations is Assaley's professed loyalty to Trump and his history of being the face of polarizing conservative issues, like trying to pass a law requiring the forced outing of students who want to change their pronouns. Can Assaley now conduct an investigation without appearing too political?
Johnson, Eddie literally swings one of the NASCAR officials right off his feet. There's Junior Johnson. Eddie literally swings one of the NASCAR officials right off his feet.
This was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. And that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors.
The new leadership, Jasmine, AOC, and Bernie.
I consider Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez to be the leader of the Democratic Party. She's entitled to her opinion. I'm entitled to mine. As I've said about her before, I think she's the reason there are directions on a shampoo box.
Brandishing a gun at a local Walmart. And ignored. Here we roll through the local crime capers. Midnight brawl at an In-N-Out Burger in Murrieta. The cops are looking for someone who discharged a firearm. It appears there was 20 to 30 people in the scuffle. At there, any information, give it to Murrieta cops. Purdue cops bust a vagrant camp. What did they find? Stolen guns and meth. Who knew? 90-year-old Paris woman dies after she was in an ambulance and the ambulance hit a tree. Also, on the local crime blotter, an arrest made in a fatal San Bernardino car wash stabbing. More arrests made in a Mexico to Riverside County drug transportation case. Riverside juvenile arrested in the death of a Moreno Valley man. Ramona high school principal on leave after DUI arrest. And Lake Elsinore man arrested for the murder of a Hemet man. Funky Slide guitar music comes in every Monday through Friday, live at 5 or close to it on the Evil Uppy Network, Rumble. Check us out, subscribe, type in iNewsWire on Rumble. Hopefully we got the camera flashing crap fixed. Sometimes these electronics will drive you frickin' nuts. No doubt about it. Lots on the look for. How about that wild chase on the 134? Dude's out there in his underwear. Oh, man. Taking a swim. That one was absolutely 100% out of control. Some of the things that people come up with, and then the homeowner comes out there and starts shoe sting at everybody. Cops hit her. Luckily, I think he just grazed her shoulder or something. It's one of the reports I got. A wild scene out there on the 134 up there. Now, the upper desert of California really having some raucous times. Some of the things you see. All about that. I have an update on the Bill O'Saley case. We said yesterday it was odd. Well, maybe not. None of the TV stations covered it. Well, Channel 2 finally covered that their Bill O'Saley and Judge Carter, our new U.S. Attorney Bill O'Saley out here in SoCal, and Judge Carter were investigating this whole vagrant fraud deal of, who knows, tens, 50, 100 billion of our tax dollars that went into this. Seems like nobody can account for it. Finally, we had a station, Channel 2, covered a little bit. Not surprising the tack they took. We'll get into that in a few minutes. Trump administration, Donald Trump lowered the tariffs for 90 days to 10% across the board, except China, who he said, we're jacking the tariffs coming into China to 134%. So I think we're getting a clear read on what the Trump strategy was. Because a lot of people were speculating, saying it was this. Is he trying to bring manufacturing back? What's the end game here? It seems like the end game was just saying who wants to get fair, free trade. If you're going to put a tariff on our products, we're going to put a tariff on yours. If you don't want any tariffs on your products, don't have any tariffs on our products. That's the only definition of free trade. Once you have an agreement or anything else, it is no longer free trade. It's managed trade. But one of the most ridiculous things that we're seeing is everybody's hair on fire trying to figure it out. Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, was on PMSNBC of all channels, and he explained it like this. And let me say this. I think Scott Bessent is probably on this whole trade economic thing. Of course, Trump is listening, I believe, to everyone. He usually does, or he usually gets everybody's opinion. I think his most highly valued opinion in this whole trade tariff deal is Scott Bessent. So here we go.
Again, this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. And that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors. And we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well. Pretty simple message. You want fair trade? Everybody, for the most part, will benefit between honest and fair trade. If you have a lot of natural gas like the United States, then it behooves you to concentrate a lot of your capital, resources, human labor into harvesting that, providing that product, not only to the United States, but the world. So when you start sticking tariffs on like Canada, 250% here, China, 75% there, Europe, 103% over here, you no longer have fair trade. You no longer have free trade. That is called a trade war. We have been in this for 50, 60, 70 years. So Trump said, okay, pretty much every country in the world wants to play ball except China. So we're going to go, okay, China, you want to rock and roll? Let's get after it. Where did the tariffs stop? China has more to lose in this than the United States ever will. Their economy sucks. Even though they got 1.3 billion people, they've had the one child per kid abortion thing going on. Their labor population is aging, which in most cases, that means the production is going down. And usually wages are higher. A double whammy. So China's looking precariously in this whole situation. If they don't sell to the American market, their country is toast, it's bankrupt. Their GDP will probably be cut in 2/3. It might affect United States GDP, gross domestic product, maybe 10%. So who's got the most to lose in a trade war? This is designed to bring China to its knees economically. So no different than in the 80s when Reagan said, we will end the Soviet Union without firing a shot. Because you can't compete with us economically. And he was 100% right. They cannot compete with the United States of America economically. China cannot do it, even as powerful as they have gotten in the last 30 years. no way, no how can they compete with the United States. There's no path that anybody's come up with that sees China winning this. It's next to impossible for them to win a trade war against the United States. That's what Scott Bessent is talking about. So, you know, if the stock market goes up today and it goes down tomorrow, and I'm betting on a guy like Donald Trump, on Scott Bessent, that they got this. And there is going to be absolutely no way in God's green earth that they're going to come out on top. China's playing a stupid game, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion. Those that are caterwauling about it or claiming the world's coming to an end are the ones that are invested in China. The big hedge fund operators, Walmarts, Amazons. They're the ones that got a ton to lose in this thing. The average American is, no matter which way it works out, it's not going to affect their life much. And since India's got almost as many people as China does, I think the end game is we are going to be dealing with more on India than China in some of these low-tech, labor-intensive products that have been coming in from China for far too long. It will probably even be like the George Carlin skit. You know, we got too much stuff. We should play that sometime. I think it would be very good if we didn't have as much stuff. Not saying that you don't have what you need to make your life enjoyable. When you get loaded down with too much crap, or stuff that's just stimulating your brain all the time, which are showing the studies is not only not good for your health, your physical health, it's not good for your mental health. So, you know, that's what the cell phone deal is. So what it's made to do, it's made to keep your mind going, that addiction, you got to have more. I can't do without my cell phone. I'm getting a message. Oh, I better respond, or somebody's going to think I don't care. Turn the damn thing off. And I think it's the same thing of this whole last 30 years when we've been able to get all these so-called cheap products from China. Maybe it will spurn a deal where maybe we have less stuff, but we have more high-quality stuff. Stuff that lasts. How about a refrigerator that lasts practically your lifetime? They used to do that. They didn't used to burn out averaging every 5 years. And there's a reason behind that. They burn out every 5 years, constantly got a reoccurring market. Bought the old Westinghouse or GE or Frigidaire back in the day, them things will run 30 years at the drop of a hat. I've got an old small one I keep as a backup. You know, keep sodas or iced tea or water in it. And it's like 50 years old. My grandparents had the damn thing. It's probably 60 years old, still running. Go buy a new $2,000, this, that, whiz bang, electronic this, locks up that. 5 years, it's junk. Maybe we'll get back to a little sanity. This chart is interesting, as we say, or as they say. U.S. gas prices for March of 2025. As in red is usually stop, danger. The S is hitting the fan. WTF, no, it really can't be that much per gallon. Yes, look at California. In the red. Washington next in the orange. Oregon and Nevada, they're in the middle. Utah gets in the green because when they get up to Salt Lake, they produce their own. Only the southern half of Utah gets their gas from California. And that makes it a little bit higher. Not much, but they don't pay that much. Arizona's in the green. They get most of their gas from California. Look at all the green. Practically the whole country is under $3 a gallon. Most everyone in the green there, which is pretty much everything but the 4 West Coast cities or states. And California is up so high, and we use so much, we're jacking the national average gas price way through the moon. Almost $5 a gallon. It's a little over 3. About $3 a gallon is the average price of a gallon of gas in the United States. We're at 5. Talk about unsustainable to the max. That's it right there. That chart is semblance of why California has been destroyed in the last 30 years, Victor Manuel Perez. You want evidence? There's the evidence in the gas prices. What else do you need to know? You had the Mischke study out of USC. It's not the big bad oil companies. It's not the oil refiners. It's not the dude at the gas station where you pump your gas in. These guys are making pennies per gallon. The state of California, when you add it up, is over $2 a gallon. Almost half. Almost half of the gallon of gas you bought goes to mostly government agencies. And of that, it's mostly about 60% of that is going to the state of California. About 30% goes to your federal government, and about 10 to 15% through sales taxes and stuff goes to your local counties and cities in California. But like I said, that chart right there, explains it all. You want evidence? There's the evidence. How do you argue against that? Do I not know what I'm talking about? Victor Manuel Perez, Chairman, President of Riverside County Board of Supervisors. Again, please come in, bring all your facts, bring Little Steve Hernandez, Jose Medina, Extian Gutierrez, or whoever you want. Professors at UCR. Any subject, education, gas prices, price of tea in China, whatever you'd like to discuss. Holy fleeping bejesus, as they say. Hopefully, in California, we'll be getting this stuff straightened out. I don't know that we will in time. But there's always a possibility that people will get in California as a majority will get their heads out of their rear ends. And we will start restoring California to the once great state it was for 150 years, the once golden state. We'll keep it back. We get California back to where it was prior to 1990. And China, Japan, any other country is not going to have a chance. Want to update the whole vagrant encampment. Where's the money went? Where's the 10, 50, $100 billion that we, the taxpayers, have kicked in on supposedly to, we were promised we're going to take care of the vagrants, we're going to end homelessness, no more on the streets, we're going to have them gone by 2009, just passed the Rich White Boys Act, Prop 63, which they conned into the majority of the people passing in 2004. Gulag Gavin Newsom and Darrell Steinberg were two of the main champions of that at the time. Judge Carter, David Carter, who is known as the vagrant judge, not because he's a vagrant, most of the cases that United States District Court in this area get in front of Judge Carter. He's staked out that territory. So he's teaming up, or was touring, on this new investigation as Bill Asaley, our new U.S. Attorney for the Central and Southern California areas. I mentioned yesterday, there was some print reports. Dudes like us were saying it. None of the local TV stations were doing a peep about this. Well, KCAL, CBS local in Los Angeles, finally did. Let's roll with their report.
Crisis in LA last week. LAHSA defunded. LAHSA, of course, the joint city and county authority that provides the budget for homeless outreach. Well, audits from LA City and County and the state have all shown that billions of dollars can't be accounted for. But is that just sloppy bookkeeping or inept bureaucrats? Or was some of that money lost to fraud or corruption? Well, President Trump's new U.S. attorney for Los Angeles says that's exactly what he intends to find out. The Trump administration's newly installed U.S. Attorney for Southern California, Bill Asaley, announced his office is launching a federal investigation into how state and local leaders spent billions of dollars on the homeless crisis.
I believe there was one audit that said there was like $2 billion worth of missing money out there.
At this point, is there any evidence of criminal activity or fraud connected to homelessness funding.
All we can say is we're going to go where the evidence takes us.
Asali, until last week, was a Republican state assemblyman representing the Inland Empire. As is routine when new presidents take office, Asali was handpicked by the Trump administration. Critics say what makes Asali's selection different from past administrations is Asali's professed loyalty to Trump and his history of being the face of polarizing conservative issues, like trying to pass a law requiring the forced outing of students who want to change their pronouns. Can Asali now conduct an investigation without appearing too political?
Can Asali do an investigation without being political? First, the reporter asks, well, $2 billion right off the get-go is unaccountable for. That's what Judge Carter's been asking for 6 months. Where's the money? Where's the beef? They've been sidestepping and him-hawing and humming. Well, I don't know where it's at. But then we start the... Did you ever hear George Gascon, when he was county district attorney of LA, them start out ultra off the charts, kook, liberal doesn't even explain it. George Gascon doesn't want to prosecute criminals, which is his job as district attorney of LA County. He wants to empty the prisons. You didn't hear Soros-funded back Gavin Newsom. What do they have? Oh, Asali wants the forced outing of transgender students. No. The Asali bill that was in the assembly was parents to be notified if Javier wants to be known as Jennifer. If their son is going by a different name than what he was given or the parents listed when they signed him in, okay, back in the day, I'm sure they still do it if you want to be referred to by your middle name or a nickname or whatever. Forced outing of transgender students. Forced outing? You see the bias in the reporting. Conservative, don't see the sign of don't erase diversity. Again, I take George Gascon, same type of deal. You never saw this. Point to me, Channel 2, of all the reports you did on George Gascon. Did you frame him? And you didn't have to make things up. No death penalty. Empty the prisons, don't prosecute, let them out on parole, heinous murderers, pedos. Of course, they had the picture where he was out here in Riverside when he was calling for the Save Girls Sports and calling for Renee Hill to resign, along with Leticia Castillo and others. There you see Leticia. Hey, there's Daniel Silvaser in the background. He's from Aruba Valley. That's the dad. I think in the center, that's the dad who the girls got booted off the cross-country team at MLK in Riverside, Woodcrest area over the dude on the girls' track team. But then we get to the analysis. Here we go.
Dollars. He does have a background in prosecution. The question is, will the legal community see him primarily as a prosecutor or primarily as a political advocate of an ideological position? We'll see what happens.
Just last week.
So that's Jack Pitney from he's local Inland Empire. You see him comment on a lot of studies, economic studies and stuff, which way the winds are going to blow. Well, is he going to be a prosecutor or is he doing it as a political statement? Finding $2, $10, $50 billion, $100 billion in fraud is a political statement, Pitney? How come you're not asking the question, why is Judge Carter asking about $2 billion on his docket in this ordeal? And nobody can explain where it went. Sounds kind of like the unemployment scam. $30 billion out down the tubes in California. We just handed it out to anybody. Cartels in Mexico. Funded Russians. Oh, they said, we're unemployed in California and we live in Russia. Czechoslovakia. Venezuela. El Salvador. A Saley's job as U.S. Attorney to prosecute criminals convicted of or accused of crimes in federal jurisdictions. One of those is fraud. If you're defrauding the federal taxpayers of money that is perfectly within his purview to investigate. In fact, he swore an oath to do that. More from the CBS 2 report.
We'll see what happens.
Just last week, the county took the extraordinary move of defunding LAHSA, the joint LA City and County Homeless Authority, because of a lack of accountability. The county will now directly manage homeless outreach funding. LA City Council member Monica Rodriguez says she does not oppose the investigation, even if she does have concerns about it potentially becoming politicized.
Again, Monica Rodriguez, well, of course you're not opposing it. Is that the one, the LAHSA deal, where the chick running it gives her husband a $2 million or some odd, whatever it was, contract? She resigned last Friday when that story broke. Resigned immediately. There was no wrongdoing. Why did she resign? Why would you? She's probably getting paid $750 or like the ding dong that jacked up the water deal out there and burned everybody's home to the ground. Quininas or whatever was running LADWP. Probably making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Then, her husband gets one of these millions of dollars worth of contracts. When people finally, Saley's on the job and Judge Carter asking, where's the money at? Ooh, we're resigning. See what Rodriguez has to say.
I think there have been some very clear failures. The fact that LAHSA gave tens of millions of dollars of Measure H funds without any contractual obligations, without any stated goals, it's a really big problem. And the fact
we gave away, this is Rodriguez, LA City Councilwoman. Well, yeah, it's a problem when we're giving out tens of millions of dollars with no accountability, What are you doing with the money? Here's the checks, just go cash them. You really wonder how that money got distributed. More from Rodriguez.
The fact that a lot of these nonprofits never return the money after they were advanced, that's a really big problem.
They never returned the money after it was advanced. What was it advanced for? You usually, okay, I'm a contractor. $2 million contract, redo this road, tear it up, put new curbs and gutters in, repave it. Deteriorated, fine. Low bid. City says, yeah, get your paperwork, get your bonding in, da-da-da-da. Don't say, oh, they don't just hand you a check for $500,000 and say, oh, well, you know, whenever you get around to building the road. No, you have to start. You have to start work, and then you get paid on whatever you did every 30 days. You got 10% of it done, you get 10%, you get $200,000. You get to 50%, you've got $1 million. And then at the end, you get 90%, and then they hold a 10% retention on for a certain amount of time to make sure, you know, in case there's something that falls apart or substandard work that shows up later within a certain amount of time. They don't, oh, you're low bid. Oh, here's $500,000. Tell us when you're going to come by and start working on the road. That's essentially what Councilwoman Rodriguez was outlining there. Every time, 98.7% of these nonprofits does not mean somebody's not getting rich off the deal. The only thing a nonprofit can't do is at the end of the year show a 10% profit. Or if they get $1 million, they can't show $100,000 profit. You don't take that money out, it has to stay in the bank account. But in most cases, unless the nonprofit specifically limits it, or it's the practice of the Pacific nonprofit, which is very rare, there's no limit to how much they can pay in salaries, how much they can go on vacations. On the French Riviera, 5-star hotels like Ricardo Lara did on our dime as the insurance commissioner. So it's another one of those emotional, oh, nonprofit. How could that? How could? No possible way. Satan, the devil, could not corrupt a nonprofit. He could have all his little demons running around, surround him. Can't touch a nonprofit. Jesus is standing, the cross is out there. They can't penetrate that.
Well, the U.S. Attorney says that right now there is not a specific target of the task force at this point, either individuals or agencies. The office saying right now it's just too early as this investigation has just begun.
Yeah. The investigation's just begun. You know, that bill of sale, that, right-wing Christian nationalists. Oh, wait a minute. That was what Corey Jackson said. Or he called us all Christian nationalists. Oh, wait a minute. Bill of sale is a Muslim. You know, right. Forced outing of transgender students. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's parental notification. Parents have a right to know what's going on with their kids in the classroom. Now, if the parents want Javier to be called Jennifer or whatever, fine and dandy. I mean, I'm not saying that they have to, get out the birth certificate and have to. Again, like I said, when I went to school, when you registered for school, you had to put down if you wanted to put down a nickname or be referred to as your middle name or by a nickname or whatever. But your parents signed off on that. They filled it out, signed on that, saying that's okay. Fine and dandy. There's a couple kids that went by their middle name or a nickname or something. Cool. No problem with that. But if you're going to go on this whole track of, they're that. So I say they had to take a while. They couldn't report the news that Assali and Judge Carter were investigating the potential billions of dollars in fraud that has potentially been committed on the tax-paying citizens of California. It's, he's transphobic, he's right-wing. He said he doesn't want boys and men in girls' and women's sports, locker rooms, or private areas. God, what a Neanderthal that guy is. Only 80% of the country plus, and the other 20% are probably lying about it. This will have some more connotation because the whole trans deal in schools broke out big time. I didn't have time to cover it today, but hopefully tomorrow's edition will have enough time to break down the tape. And at Placentia, Yorba Linda, where Leander Blades was trying to get on the agenda, the same thing, the Save Girls Sports.
20 seconds, 20 seconds.
We'll hopefully have some more coverage of that, but it's the same thing. And the same rent a mob is around of that. We cannot let the very slim minority dictate everything.
3 seconds, here we go.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire in the aforementioned AM band, joining our vast video audience in the Evil FB Network, Rumble, X, YouTube, all that good stuff. Check us out, subscribe on all that stuff today. That wild police pursuit on the freeway of 134 up in the upper desert of that dude bails out of the car in the freeway, rips off all his clothes except his skivvies, swimming in somebody's pool, has a guitar. Then the lady comes out, one of the homeowners, with a gun. Cops shoot her. Didn't seem like a serious injury. Looked like it maybe grazed her shoulder or something. They didn't know what the hell was going on. Wild scene. We had that at the top. You can catch that, our breaking down of the whole thing. You can't make this stuff up. We'll cover it tomorrow, but the same Save Girl Sports and the flag deal. with the trannies and everything, broke out big time, both at Redlands Unified and Placentia Yorba Linda School District. Hopefully we'll break down the tapes of those. Again, wild. You can't make this stuff up. Let me just put it this way. Well, one former school board candidate, that lost to one of the ladies that's up there, throwing the F-bomb right and left. Teachers saying anything. You're not going to believe some of the videotape we run across. Hopefully we'll rein all this stuff in. We covered the Bill Saley, Channel 2 covered it with his vagrant investigation of the billions, possibly in fraud, that have went awry. And they formed, that evil Bill Saley, conservative, Republican. What's Trump doing? Not, why are we out billions of dollars and in this whole thing? It's absolutely stunning of what goes on. But as we usually do on a Wednesday, we have the famed editorial writer, columnist for the Press Enterprise, San Bernardino Sun, Inland Daily Bulletin, Redlands Daily Facts. More important to me, Vice President of Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, Susan Shelley, welcome to iNewsWire with Roy.
Thank you, Roy. Great to be with you.
So the whole tariff thing took a big twist today. Trump dropped them all except China down to 10%, saying everybody but China is willing to negotiate. He said, we're jacking the ones up to China wants to play. We're going to 134%. Scott Bessent, which I think is probably the main advisor, the one Trump's listening to the most on this deal, said they're walking, they want to play. I believe we're in an economic war with China right now. And that's what Trump is basically, it's either going to be them or us. We're either going to win this or they are. He's drawn the line in the sand with China, saying, you guys are either going to come to the table, you're not going to take advantage of us or anybody else anymore. If you don't, then we are going to bury you, Susan Shelley.
I think you're exactly right. And if you remember when Trump came down the escalator in 2015 and said he was going to run for president, the thing that got all the attention was not the thing he was actually talking mostly about. What got the attention was that comment about immigration and rapists and whatever else he said. That got all the attention. But most of the speech was about China. And we should probably all go back and take a look at that on YouTube, because I bet it says exactly what he's doing right now.
Exactly. Trump has been, not only has he been saying it for 40 years, he's been since 2015 when he announced he's running for president. He has said this consistently now, as he's been a politician or in the politician works for the last 10 years. He's been saying it consistently, whether he was on the campaign trail, Trump 1.0, Trump while he was out of office, Trump when he's back in office. Now I believe he's got the Scott Bessents and crew in there working with him to do it, instead of the ones he had before who were fighting him on it because they had a lot of interest tied to China, and they, like the few that are caterwauling or now, could see their future going down the tubes. I think that's a big difference, one of the big differences in 2015 versus 2017, Susan.
Yes, well, he's got great people, and he certainly knows what he's trying to do. And interestingly, he plays the whole world like a violin. He puts out these statements, and then he pulls back the statements, and then he softens the statements, and he hardens the statements. And he's doing this because he's at the same time hearing from people around the world, and he's manipulating them, and he's trying to get the most he can without actually doing anything, just on the threat that he might do something. And it's very interesting to watch. We don't know the whole story because we're not hearing the other side of the conversations yet, but we will one day. And I think this is going to be a master class. At least I hope so. I think it's going to work out really well. I think he's doing what Ross Perot said had to be done, which is prevent the jobs from leaving the United States. You know, Trump wants to bring them back. And he might. Everybody said it couldn't be done, but he's done a number of things that everybody said couldn't be done.
This reminds me of a book called Art of the Deal that somebody wrote. I mean, this is exactly what you do in a let's say complicated puzzle where you're trying to play all the piano keys in this thing across the board, and you got all these moving or potentially moving pieces to fit together. Well, he's brought everybody except and he has now focused everybody. What I believe what the strategy was and what Scott Bessent was talking about in the news conference today is now we got a clear focus of where everybody's standing in this thing. Everybody wants to deal with the United States except China. So this is where if he gets the rest of the world on our side or, going down our path, China does not have a snowball's chance in hell, in my opinion, Susan.
You're probably right about that. He could isolate them. He can certainly create a situation where they can't sell their products and they have no place to export to. And then what do? I know they hold a lot of our debt, and they could probably wreak havoc in our real estate market and in our bond market. But Trump's certainly aware of that, so I think he's working it. It's fascinating. He said that the goal is to get to the point where we make so much money on tariffs that you can cut the income tax completely to zero for everyone who makes up to $150,000. That would be political dynamite if he could do that. I don't think the Democrats would ever elect another person for as long as they.
I hope you're right on that one, and you may be. I mean, it could put him in a peril of that. Another thing along that line, and shifting gears a little bit, but I think it's really going to focus on California of that, is this whole deal that's been breaking out about the vagrant housing and who knows, $2, $10, $50 billion in fraud, waste, and abuse has been going on. Judge Carter's been asking about the LA deal. Well, can you just explain to me where the $2 billion went? Does anybody know how we spent $2 billion? And everybody's looking around like, we don't know. That's of that. Now they're apoplectic, and this is where the Inland Empire thing comes in. Bill Asaley, our former assemblyman out here, was appointed by Trump as the U.S. Attorney General for the Central Southern California area. He's teamed up with Judge Carter now, teaming up with using the resources of the U.S. Attorney's Office with the U.S. Judge over there. And now we're going to look into the whole thing. We got to investigate. Now he's got his potential 300 attorneys over there in the U.S. Attorney's Office to start looking into this, of what's going on. And people are running through the droves. What, one of the LA women that were down there running this thing would have given her husband a $2 million contract. As soon as that came out, she resigned on Friday. I mean, that screams guilty. Not saying she is, but that screams, you might as well tattoo guilty right across your forehead, Susan Shelley.
Well, that Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority has been a sinkhole for money for the longest time. They have close to $1 billion that's run through it. They've been managing the federal, state, and local revenue for homelessness services and housing. And they're supposedly the people who are overseeing the money. But they don't know where anything is. And they're not even managing their contracts so that you can get copies of what people are supposed to be doing or whether they did what they were paid to do. So this is what the auditors have found over and over again. And it's terrible. And so it didn't seem to matter because these people make more than $400,000 a year to run this agency, and they never got fired. So apparently it was finally too much. It was one more audit, and then it was Bill Asaley setting up a task force. And I think $2 million, all credit to Nick Gerda from LAist, formerly voice of OC, who dug out that story with a public records request. All the auditors didn't find it, that $2 million contract that she gave to her husband's nonprofit. And her signature wasn't supposed to be on it, but it was in 3 places. And Nick Gerda dug that out, like I said, with a public records request. So I think all of those things together And then LA County pulled the money away from the agency, and they said, well, we're not doing this joint thing anymore. We're going to do our own agency for homelessness. And that was the end. Out she went.
It's crazy. They had CBS had Councilwoman Rodriguez on there saying, well, you know, tens of millions of dollars, and they wouldn't give back money we gave them up front. What in the hell were we giving them money up front for in the first place for doing this stuff? I mean, you know, the insanity that keeps coming out on this stuff, and they're trying. And what was really stunning to me, and what really of CBS, and they're trying to do their news and report. They're, you know, Bill Asaley, who's got a bill to out transgender people. Nothing could be further from the truth. He's a right-wing conservative. Is he doing this for ideologically political purposes? You know, he was appointed by Trump. Did they ever say, what did they ever say about Gascon, the LA attorney, Didier, that just got voted out, who was emptying the prisons, wouldn't prosecute anybody, and paroled murderers, recommended parole of murderers, pedos, and everything else? They didn't say a peep about him, but Asaley's this evil conservative. Man, that stuff just tweaks my brain to no end, Susan.
Well, we have seen this before. We saw this during the Clinton administration when there were special prosecutors out the yin-yang because he was doing everything that was illegal, and so was his wife Hillary. And there were special counsel after special counsel appointed to investigate all these scandals. And what did Clinton do? He demonized the prosecutors. Ken Starr and the others, he demonized them. They were these staid, boring lawyers with these perfect resumes, and he made them sound like they were Satanists, crazy zealots, sex fiends, all these things. Why did he demonize the prosecutors? Because he knew what they were going to find.
I think,
did.
Yes, I think this is. This is going to be like the old adage, shooting fish in a barrel. I think that's why they're scrambling down there. This is going to be. This might make the unemployment, the $30 billion on the unemployment deal with Gavin Newsom and Julie Sue and all that look like tiddlywinks when they're all done. Shifting gears, I want to get to your column. Judicial overreach must be stopped. Susan Shelley.
Well, we've seen all these lower court judges, federal judges, issue temporary restraining orders that essentially stop the entire Trump administration's policies from being implemented. Like 50 or 100 different places. You can't fire people. You can't cut contracts. You have to continue doing everything the way Biden did, or we're going to sue you. And what's happening, because different groups, the unions and various activist groups, are suing over the Trump policies, these federal judges are issuing temporary restraining orders to stop the policy while the lawsuit goes forward. Well, if you think about it, these lawsuits take years. It's a 4-year term. It's not because one interest group files a lawsuit and one federal judge enters a preliminary injunction, and we're supposed to just not have an executive branch on the say-so of one judge. So this has to be stopped. Now, the Supreme Court can stop it, but they have to kind of stop it one case at a time because they're all a little different. But I'll tell you who can stop it is the United States Congress. And it's right in the Constitution, although nobody reads it. There's an exceptions clause. Congress has the power to make exceptions to the appellate jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, and by inference, all the inferior courts that are created under the Supreme Court by Congress. So not only do they have control of the funding, not only do they create the courts that are underneath the Supreme Court, but they can make exceptions and say, well, we're not going to let the Supreme Court hear any cases on immigration. For example, they could do that. They're not going to do that, but they could do that. They can also make regulations. So they can pass a law in Congress that establishes that local district judges cannot issue these nationwide injunctions. They can only issue injunctions that affect the case immediately before them, but not the wider case for the whole country. So there's a lot that Congress can do if they choose to do it. And I'll just quote Theodore Roosevelt here, who said, and rightly, "I may not know much about law, but I know one can put the fear of God into judges."
Yes, that's 100%. This government by some indiscriminate judge that has an agenda. Again, you don't see in the most part the most of the media covering this stuff. They're just, but if the whole deal about they might have made a mistake or something, and probably didn't, but one of the guys shipped down to El Salvador, well, he wasn't a trendy Liaga gang, he was with MS-13. Well, you know what? I don't really care. He's not here anymore, potentially terrorizing the United States. So, I still think we should look into a lot of this stuff, what Trump's doing. We want to do trade. Let's trade some of our prisoners and have some of these other countries take care of them for a while, because they'll do it much cheaper. And I bet you if they do ever get back to the United States, they will be much less. You want to talk about punishment or recidivism? I bet you they'd be much less apt to be committing crimes if they spent time down in the prison of El Salvador, Susan Shelley.
Well, I agree with you, but I think the Supreme Court probably got it right. They said that there has to be some level of a hearing, a habeas hearing for these people who are swept up and are going to be deported under this Alien Enemies Act or any other part of the immigration law, because there can be mistaken identity cases. Now, what Trump was saying is this is like a war, and we have had this predatory invasion of millions of people, and we're not going to go and have a hearing for each individual one of them. If we know who they are, they're out. And you can make the argument that that's necessary, but if there's a mistake, you have to rectify it very quickly, because the credibility of the whole country is at stake, I think. You can't just sweep people up, and if you get it wrong, you say, well, we don't care. We do care. If there's mistaken identity, if there's wrong information, and they find out about it, they should do everything they can to correct it. Just like in a criminal trial, if somebody who is innocent wrongfully convicted, we should try to fix that. If we know about it, we should try to correct it. Even if we say, oh, well, they did all these other crimes, still, we have to get these things right, I think. But I'm sympathetic to the argument that you can't let 1 million people pour over the border and then take 10 years of hearings to let them out again. So there has to be a way to do this in an expeditious manner, or to set up a process to correct errors. If you don't do it slowly and you do it in an expeditious manner, but then you find out that something's wrong, there has to be a process for correcting that. And so the Supreme Court said there has to be a habeas hearing for people in this Alien Enemies Act. It doesn't have to be the full trial kind of thing beyond a reasonable doubt and all that, but there has to be at least an opportunity for someone to say you got the wrong person.
In your other column, Sydney Dove's disgraceful smear of journalist Matt Taibbi, Susan Shelley.
Well, this is very interesting. Here you have a sitting congresswoman who was jumping from office to office without even completing any of her terms, just jumping from office to office in special elections, and now she's in Congress. And she's a machine politician, and she's heavily supported by labor, as they all are in California Democratic politics. And she's sitting as the ranking member of a hearing on the 1st of April, and she reads this statement repeating these absolutely slanderous lies of journalist Matt Taibbi, who is sitting in the room as a witness to talk about the censorship industrial complex. He was there to testify about the weaponization of government and censorship. And she opens up the hearing. She's the ranking member, so she makes an opening remark by accusing him of being a serial sexual harasser, entering 2 old news articles into the congressional record. And these stories were totally discredited. Corrections were made by the publications. They were entirely wrong, and everybody admitted it. He's never been accused of anything like that by anybody. And so when she did that, you can't sue someone for libel for what they say in their official duties in the House. However, she takes the clip and she posts it on social media, and she adds a snide remark here and there, and then Matt Taibbi filed a $10 million libel lawsuit against her. And I hope he collects every penny and then some.
100%. Some of this that they try to hide behind or do that, I agree, has got to stop, because It does no good anywhere across the board. It just ratchets up the ridiculous rhetoric going on. Got about a minute left. Tell them why they should join HJTA. Go.
The Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is the best organization in California fighting for you, the taxpayer. So you can join and be a member of this great historic organization at hjta.org. We will send you information and updates and our Taxing Times newsletter with all kinds of articles about stuff that's going on with your money. And you might as well find out about it in advance, because then you can maybe do something to stop some of this. hjta.org. Be a member in this important year leading up to the 2026 elections.
Thanks for being on, Susan. We'll do this again next week.
Thank you, Roy.
You got it. Susan Shelley, Vice President of Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and columnist extraordinaire. Oh, boy. Lot to pack in. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to break down more of the tape. Wild school board meeting. Maybe, well, it might be even more wilder than the dude who bails out of the freeway on his underwear and then takes a dip in the pool and plays a guitar, whatever he did on the 134 of that. And then the Homer comes out with a gun and the cops shoot her. Fortunately, they just grazed her shoulder or something. She wasn't, I don't think she wasn't like they shot her. Wild scene going on. I think the Redland School Board, some of the raucous stuff that was going there last night, hopefully we'll be able to break down the tape tomorrow and have that. John Barry, former Press Enterprise reporter, had the clip up on that, but I got to the whole meeting. They do tape their meetings, so some of the comments going on over there. We got some real issues going on, as they say. And maybe it just took us to get to this point. Maybe it had to get down to this where people really started paying attention, and maybe the vast majority of us will engage and do something about it, because if we don't, you're not going to like the results. And that will not be good. As you know, I've been talking about standing up for our country, doing something. These big box stores stayed open while the little guys closed. Will our voices be heard? Does voting with our dollars work? PatriotSwitch.com gives patriots the power to walk away from the big box stores forever. Stop supporting the enemies of freedom now. That's why PatriotSwitch.com was created, for those who support America. PatriotSwitch.com. Is your car doing the hucklebuck and afraid you will be stuck? Well, head on down to Toyota of San Bernardino, Nissan of San Bernardino, Subaru of San Bernardino, and the San Bernardino Auto Mall, and catch a Camry, look ravishing in a Rogue, or be styling in a Subaru. Don't forget I-10 Toyota in Indio for those of you in the lower desert. You deserve to be the happiest human on the planet. So head on down to one of these 4 great dealerships for the car of your dreams. Spread the word. IE Newswire is now on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 p.m. on Rumble and KMET 1490 AM, 5:30 to 6 p.m. Join all the cool kids who want an eclectic look at the news without all the filters of the evil scoundrels of social media and the despicable dorks of the dominant press. Don't bumble and stumble. Subscribe to IE Newswire on Rumble and roll with the best hillbilly hoedown around. That's it. If you want to buy American, go to PatriotSwitch.com. If you need a new Subaru or Toyota, go to one of Cliff Cummings' great dealerships at San Bernardino Auto Mall at the 10 and 215 freeways. Don't forget I-10 Toyota down in the lower desert. Looks like things again. Things to be optimistic about. We got them on. Trump's got them scrambling. Got the Chi-Coms. They don't know what to do. Their economy's in a pickle. Now, Trump's got the rest of the world like looking at, hey, we're not taking your guff anymore. Of all the caterwauling, everybody's, oh, Trump's going to economic depression worse than the Great Depression of the 30s, and yeah. bigger crash in the stock market, crash of 29 and all that stuff. Nothing could be farther from the truth on that. So if things go as planned, again, everybody's going to like the end result, or most everybody. You can't please everybody all the time. We know that. Some people would be mad if you're passing out $100 bills. Human nature, I guess. We're a strange breed, but we'll figure it all out. That'll do it for today. Mandatory, you're back here in 23 Hours Wide. You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Till then, see ya!
All right, I will talk to you tomorrow.
You got it.